Hello ladies and gents, welcome back to another consignment update. Don't worry, it's not going to be as long as last week's. Some of you may have enjoyed that bumper episode, but some of you probably prefer it in shorter bursts. So we have around 30 guitars today. Obviously stick to the end for something special. The thumbnail might have been a bit of a giveaway if you saw that first. But I think just a quick one, we are recording the day after the sad news of the passing of Ozzy Osbourne. Quite a shock to see that last night. For those of you who follow us on social media, we put a story tribute up like most people do. I don't normally do it, but Ozzy Osbourne was a massive influence on my musical journey, as with Chris as well. I remember I actually got to Ozzy Osbourne, I guess in time in general, quite late, and that was 2002, which is obviously well on through his career. But I was 16 at the time. I was already into punk and grunge music. I guess two big bands I was into at the time were Green Day and Nirvana. But I hadn't quite gone down, apart from listening to a bit of Metallica, I hadn't quite gone down the heavy metal route so much. But in 2002, when I was 16, I was on holiday with my family in Malta, and I wandered into a music store there. It was back in the days where you could still go and put the big cans on and listen to some of their highlighted albums on the shelf. There was two albums I still vividly remember this boiling hot day. I just bought some olives off the side of the street as well. Fantastic in Malta, soaking up the culture. And they had Ozzy Osbourne's Live at Budokan album that came out that year, of course with Zakk Wylde. And I also bought, it must have been because I bought an Alice in Chains album. Now, it is the one with the dog on the front, which of course the self-titled Alice in Chains. But when I bought the album, it must have been around the time the Greatest Hits came out. It also had the dog on the front, and I know Heaven Beside You was on there, but there was some other Man in the Box was on there as well, and I'm sure it's not on that album, so probably a Greatest Hits. Anyway, I bought those two albums, and they were really inspirational on me and my music taste afterwards. They threw me into the world of heavy metal and Zakk Wylde as a guitarist, and I listened to that album on repeat for probably at least 6 months. Live at Budokan, incredible album. I know Chris is more drawn towards the 1981 live Ozzy Osbourne recording with Randy Rhoads, but we've both been massively influenced by Ozzy Osbourne and all of his work. I will admit myself, I've never massively followed Black Sabbath. I of course love the well-known songs Paranoid and all the others, War Pigs, things like that. But Ozzy Osbourne's solo work and his work with Randy Rhoads, his work with Zakk Wylde, huge influence on everything that came afterwards. And like I said, it threw me into the world of heavy metal, and I was kind of a heavy metal hard rock guitarist from that point onwards. So I've got a lot to thank Ozzy for. Rest in peace. I think all of our best wishes, we didn't know Ozzy and don't know the family, but all of our best wishes to the family at this very difficult time. And to all of those fans out there, or maybe there are people that did know Ozzy that are watching this video, our thoughts and best wishes are with you all. So there we go. That's my short little tribute to Ozzy Osbourne. Like I said, it meant a lot to me in my growing up as a guitarist. But today we are going to look at a selection of instruments, like I said, around 30, not as long this time. But as usual, comment on what you like, what you don't like. There's going to be a lot of nice vintage pieces today. So if you're not into the vintage stuff and like lower end stuff, there's not as much of that, but do stick around. There's some lovely things to look at. And of course, as always, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button. I think if you're watching this and there's let's say less than 500 likes, hit that like button, because it does help the news spread and the love spread, and helps people get engaged with our content, because we like to promote this as a nice friendly channel, sharing the things we've got coming up for sale. So do hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the bell icon for future notifications. Head over to our website, guitarauctions.com, to check out the catalogue previews. But that's enough of the usual pre-video waffle. Let's go and have a look at what we've got coming up for sale on the 9th to the 12th of September 2025. So we are starting with some vintage Gibsons. And this is rather nice. Comes with its original case, as you can see as well. So this is a 1967 Gibson ES-335 in its cherry finish. You can see all the checking, as is very common with these guitars. Depending on how they are stored, of course, and the environment they're in, you can get fine checking and you can get wider checking. This one has sort of more of the wider cracking type checking. But I think it's nice to see with these nitro finishes. Because it's 67, it does have the skinnier nut. So I think the majority of people prefer the wider nut. But there are lots of people who do also prefer this skinnier nut. So yeah, another feature, of course, is the trapeze tailpiece. Which was a later, well, mid-60s transition, and later 60s having this trapeze rather than a stop bar. So again, that's a feature that a lot of people do prefer, the stop bar, and I guess it gives more anchoring. Some people say a bit more stable, but I don't know. There we go. Put that back on the saddle. But it's a good example, lovely clean condition, obviously aside from the checking, which you should expect to see anyway. 1967 Gibson ES-335. And from the same period, also from the same seller, is another nice Hummingbird. We saw a Hummingbird in the last video from, I'm pretty sure that one was 67. This is from roughly 68. And like the last one, in lovely clean condition. There we go, the Hummingbird you can see on the pick guard, and these later 60s ones, they had the screwed in pick guards. So that's always a feature to look out for, because the serial numbers around this time can be a little bit sketchy. I mean, certainly between, well, if you look up the serial numbers, you can sometimes get dates from like 63 and some from 68, so you just need to refine the specs. So of course, another feature you will get on these later ones, like the ES-335, is you get the skinnier nut. So if you see a skinnier nut, a screwed in guard, you know it's going to be a later 60s example rather than earlier 60s. So again, thinner neck, won't suit everyone, but there are still, like I said, lots of people, usually people with smaller hands, that prefer the thinner neck. I've actually got quite small hands myself, but I prefer a big neck. All player preference, but it's in lovely clean condition. You can see how good the finish is. Not much checking on this at all, but the finish does all appear to be correct. Mahogany neck, the tuners with a bit of gold plating loss, but like I said, a fine, clean example. I've just been told off by Chris for saying I've got small hands. Apparently I haven't got small hands, so there we go. I've got fairly big hands, but not long, shred guitarist fingers.
Hand dysmorphia.
Anyway, here we go. 1980 Aria Pro II SB-900. I absolutely love these guitars. The build on them's fantastic. This is in such good condition, it almost looks new. Aside from a little bit of minor tarnishing on the bridge, you could say, but I think that's pretty clean, isn't it? Very acceptable. I think Chris, being a bassist, well, no, you're a guitarist come bassist, but out
of necessity.
Out of necessity, but yeah, I think Chris likes these quite a lot as well. But yeah, 1980 SB-900, lovely clean condition. Sticking with the bass theme and iconic. 2002, this one, nice clean condition as well. This is a Rickenbacker 4003. Not to be confused with the 4001. The 4001 model was actually discontinued for a while. I made that mistake quite a lot early on in my guitar cataloguing days. It's been an early in the morning, long week, and yeah, I always used to assume that it was a 4001 model, but that was discontinued and the 4003 came in, basically. But lovely clean condition, the maple glow finish, and as you'd expect, comes with its case. The case does have one damaged latch, but we can forgive that. We do also have the cover there as well, if you're wondering where that is. So there we go, 2002 Rickenbacker 4003. Calling out to all of our guitar detectives. We have a 1998 Gibson Blueshawk here. Got some annotations on it, which isn't always unusual for guitars like this. We've got an EC up there. It's not Eric Clapton's. But the interesting thing is in the case we have a guitar strap with Syd Barrett's name on. Whether the owner was just a fan, this is from a deceased estate, so we don't have much information here. We also got an autograph on the case there as well. If anyone knows anything, I mean, I know Syd Barrett had an auction, or there was an auction of his effects years and years ago, which we can't find much information about. But I don't know. Has this got any relation to Syd Barrett at all? Does anyone know? Can anyone recall anything? Or does anyone recognise any of these annotations or markings? Be interesting to know. So in here, maybe another one for people with small hands. Not me, apparently. We have a
small hands if you want, mate.
let's just say medium. 1978 Fender Musicmaster bass. I guess it's in the condition that we see a lot of these in. So it's obviously been used over the years. We've got the blonde looking finish. So missing the thumb rest, the potentiometers are changed, the pickup appears original, the barrels have been painted black, it appears. But aside from that, it is what it is. A few splits to the guard, which this is very common because when you pull out the jack, it just pulls everything with it. So most of the Musicmaster basses we see have some form of repair there. And so there we go, 1978 Fender Musicmaster bass. So in here we have another vintage Gibson. So we've got a 1964 Gibson ES-330. There we go. Just have a look. We do have a refinished neck. So neck's been refinished. I can't actually see any repairs underneath this thin finish. So the two reasons usually for a finish would be cover up or a neck repair, or just to cover up some form of damage. Or you know, people just want a nicer, glossier feeling neck. But anyway, there we go, 1964. So we've got the chrome pickups on this one. The earlier ones have black pickups. We do have a Bigsby on this one. So that is a later Bigsby, so it would have originally had different, but you can see it's got a slightly wider nut than the earlier ones that we saw. Block inlays, that was a feature that came in around 1962. Brazilian rosewood board. Nice checking and figuring to the guitar. So it is a nice example, but obviously it does have this neck refinish, so the price will be kept a little bit more favourable for those of you who want, I guess, something in the player's grade category and don't want to. I mean, it's still going to be expensive, I have to say, sorry for that, but certainly more than I could afford. But it's going to be probably £1,000 less than one that is completely original because of that issue. Doesn't come with original case, comes with a later case, but there we go, 1964 Gibson ES-330. Always nice to see these stickers. It says something about the era, Ghostbusters, Garfield. Yeah, nice. Anyway, inside we have by Ovation, but a Matrix. So these are quite interesting. So Matrix by Ovation, this is the 11324 model, and they've basically got this metal aluminium, I'm assuming, fretboards that have been ebonized. You can see the binding as well. And they have this slightly different head shape as well, obviously very much in the Ovation style, but yeah, a bit wackier. There we go. Deep bowl on this one. Spruce top with the typical lacquer cracking. These aren't actually cracks in the wood. This is just the lacquer, the way it goes. And we've got this interesting binding around the top as well. Yeah, I think they're really interesting. We don't see many of them around. Coming at around £200 usually. So 150 to 250 estimate, I think, on this one. Comes with an Ovation case. So just an interesting variation from Ovation there. So we have another Musicmaster bass. It's not the same one. You can see the slight difference with the logo on these ones. So the earlier ones had this type of logo, where the later 70s ones had the typical block lettering. So yeah, 1971, again, in the blonde finish, or the yellowed finish. Lots of checking on this one. This has had a replaced guard. There is routing underneath the pick guard, so a bigger pickup's been put in at some point, hence the guard change. Replacement knobs, but it has got an original pickup put back in. Pretty sure it's original anyway. Check the description before you bid, of course. This one does have the thumb rest, but you can see it's a lot more used, all the wear on the back of the neck there. But another cool early 70s Fender Musicmaster bass. More stickers here, again on the case. Same collection, this one from the other one actually. 1977 Silver Jubilee. An old British Open sticker as well. Obviously into their golf. There we go. Right. One in the middle. There we go. So I promised you in the last video we would have a look at another Electric 12. We do have two 1966 Electric 12s in the sale. We hardly ever get them. In fact, I think I've only sold one other. And then suddenly, yeah, it's not him, considering it's been 18 years. And then we suddenly get two in one sale. As the last one, lovely clean condition, few minor dings, but really strong red in the sunburst still. So the finish hasn't faded much at all. But there we go. We've got it's interesting that the special stamp has been put in here, and usually you'd see it on the back of the head. Actually, it is on the back of the head as well. Never seen it on the body as well. And it's upside down. Interesting. Anyway, 1966 Fender Electric VI 12. So it's still in the same collection. It's quite interesting. We're going to have a look at these two guitars side by side. So there we have. Everyone will know, of course, that is a Les Paul Deluxe. This is from 1974. If we look in this one, we have, also from 1974, a Les Paul Standard. Now, in 1974, the Standard was not standard.
The Deluxe was standard.
The Deluxe was standard. So if we have a look at the Deluxe first, this one, is this the one with the head brake? I think it might be the other one. So we have 1974 Les Paul Deluxe, and of course, the big thing with the Deluxes and of how to, well, obviously apart from the truss rod cover telling you it's a Deluxe, the way to tell is, of course, the mini humbucker pickups, which are fantastic pickups. Got a lot of time for these pickups. I think for years and years and years and years and years, everyone's been saying, "Oh, mini humbuckers are underrated," but I think it's been said so much now they should be rated. You'll see the rings here. These are what most people call goof hiders or goof rings. These essentially hide the sins of bad craftsmanship, I guess. So they were put around just to tidy things up. Quite often you see them without these rings, of course, and that's where the job in the factory's been nice and clean. But that's the reason you'll see those, is just to cover up some imperfections, hence why we call them goof hiders. Nice strong cherry sunburst finish. So generally it is a clean example. I've seen a lot worse. There are some dings and marks. But what we will do is we will now have a look at this 1974 Les Paul standard, and there's a knack to getting out of this case because the tuners are quite tight. And there we go, you can see this one has had the repaired neck. So at the time, you could not get a double humbuckered Les Paul as standard, so a standard spec standard. You could get them by special order. This does make them quite rare. I've had a couple over the years, but that is it. I think I had one last year actually, and I can't actually remember another one. I probably have had one. But yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. You can see the standard logo there, nice and small print that you often see on these ones. But I just think it's, yeah, really interesting to compare them side by side, both from the same year. One, the Deluxe, is standard, and the standard is Deluxe, maybe. But there we go, both from 1974. Be quite cool to buy them and have them side by side, I think. But there we go, both coming up on the 9th of September. It's really odd opening a case. It's kind of like back to front, opening it that way. Hard to get your head round. So here we have a 1970s Gibson ES-175. So nice one for the jazzers. It's going to be the earlier side of 1970s, so around 74, much like the other ones in this collection. Again, from the same collection. This is in nice clean condition. We tend to find jazz guitars do get looked after a bit more, but we've got some very light checking to the finish, a few dings to the neck, and there we go. You can see the head there with the serial number, 6-digit as it should be, with a 6 as a starting number. Pots there with the big cans, but all looks to be original and correct. So in here we have a Guild. So again, same year. This chap obviously bought all of his guitars around the same time. 1974 Guild Starfire 4. Again, in nice clean condition. Quite weighty these. They've got the big block in the middle. Comes with the Bigsby there. And as you can see, a bit of buckle markings to the back, but in nice clean condition otherwise. Again, from the 1970s, incredible quality these guitars. So if you are after a jazz guitar,
It does not look like a 50-year-old guitar.
it doesn't, does it? This is an AE-12. Yamaha have always made very good quality guitars. Obviously they've had some budget guitars as well, but still of good quality. Comes with its original case in incredibly clean condition. Again, it's another one of those where you could say it didn't come out of the factory that long ago, but all the metal work is nice and bright. And yeah, just a fantastically well made arched up guitar. And you can get these for mid-hundreds. It seems mad, really. And you know, to get I guess the Gibson equivalent, you'd be looking at 5 times that. So really good option if you're after this type of guitar. What a beast of a guitar here. Look at that. John Birch, really well-known luthier. I guess the biggest name connected to him, maybe Tony Iommi. Yeah, fantastic instrument this, really. Really well made, the body. John Birch, a lot of John Birch guitars themselves I think are great personally. Some people don't like them, of course, but I like a lot of his wacky designs. His pickups are really sought after is one thing, but gets a bit of a bad reputation from some of the modifications he does to I guess more well-known brand guitars. I've seen some odd things like lacquering rosewood fretboards and even lacquering over tuners and things like that. Some odd things, and I quite often use the term butchered by Birch, but really well-known luthier and made some really cool, fantastic instruments. This thing weighs a ton. My arm's starting to ache quite a lot, but all the electrics are working on this. We've got I'm not quite sure what pickups these are. I mean, John Birch had Hyperflux, he had Magnum pickups. There'll be those who know out there, but have quite a unique sound. And there you can see John Birch Custom, 1970s, 1980s. And there we go, big panel on the back there, obviously to help
like
install, just like Tony Iommi, yeah, just to install all the electrics. But there we go, in a cool wooden homemade case that fits it nicely. So in here we have an old Martin, 1969, I believe. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, so this is the D28 from 1969, as you'd expect. For right up until the late 60s, Martin used Brazilian rosewood up until around 1971 is when they stopped using it. So they did use it later than a lot of the other manufacturers who stopped using it around 65. But it has had some work. I think there's a few repaired hairlines to the back here that I can see. There's a small one there, but Brazilian rosewood can go quite dry and brittle. So it's quite often the case. Yeah, we've got a big repair around the shoulder there. But it is otherwise in pretty good condition considering. So it's obviously had some restoration work, but it's all kind of good to go. It's not going to be in tune.
Sorry about that.
Jazz chords. But yeah, there we go. 1969 Martin D28. So in here we have a 1970 this time D35. So if you'd rather a D35 to a D28, then there we go. So 1970, three-piece back on these ones. Again, Brazilian rosewood, still using. Actually looks like a mixture of both Brazilian and Indian, but there we go. So there are some repairs on this one. Again, there's a hairline there. There's a bit of separation from the binding here, as we can see. And there is some re-lacquering throughout. But again, an old, now vintage Martin, 1970 D35. So in this Hagstrom case, we have an old Fender guitar, 1967 Fender Coronado II. Some fading to the finish, as we can see, but otherwise it is in good condition. Small chips at the edges, we can accept that. Bit of wear to the edges of the neck, so it has been played over the years. Nice to see. But yeah, 1967 Fender Coronado II, just something a little bit different for your vintage Fender category. So this is a really, really, really nice Strat. In its original case, 1965, and it's a really nice example. So it's pretty much completely original, apart from one thing that I will show you in a second. In fact, there's two things. I told a porky. Right, so three-tone sunburst finish, as you'd expect. It's got the amount of wear that I quite like, so it's not too much, but it's got a certain amount of mojo, I guess. Dings and marks around, but I think acceptable for a used guitar of this age. Now, in 1965, there was various transitions, and one of the things is the guard. So in 65, the guards went to the more white rather than the green guard. I prefer the look of the green guard. So they basically changed the material and what have you, all transition things with the CBS takeover. So this is an early 65 example. Now, the potentiometers are actually first week of 1965. It's got a January 65 neck, and obviously the green guard and the correct pickups as well. So it's literally made, all put together in the very first week of 1965. It's got the slightly bigger logo, of course, which replaced the spaghetti logo. So this transition logo there. And I think one thing that I nearly was about to forget to mention was that it has, of course, got a replacement nut. So that black nut is not original. There's quite a bit of wear to the frets. The frets, I believe, are original. Looking at them just quickly now. You'll see the clay dots. Again, this is something that changed throughout the year. So went from clay dots to the more white dots. And the only other thing, which is the main thing I was going to mention, is at some point this neck has been very slightly sanded down, essentially just to give a less sticky feel. But this was done a very long time ago. You can see the amount of wear and grime that's got into it. It's still got the slightly fuller neck profile that you get sort of going into 64, 65. It's my preferred neck profile. Usually on vintage Strats, around 64 is what I prefer. I'm the same with Gibson as well, funnily enough. Both Gibson and Fender around 64 had the neck profiles for me. But really cool guitar. What's this going to make? Probably somewhere in the region of 12, well, anywhere between 12 and 16,000. I think the last 65 Strat that was a little bit cleaner than this, we did get about 15.5, 16,000 for. Yeah, good example, and it's got sort of desirable and transition features. So really, really cool 1965 Fender Stratocaster. So in this Fender polystyrene, we have, in excellent condition as well, this is actually from the same owner as the 65 Strat, we have a 1980 Hardtail Stratocaster. So again, this is in all original condition. So we've got the big headstock with the larger Strat logo. This is actually my favourite logo, the big bold logo that started to be used in the going in towards the late 60s into early 70s. So yeah, I really like this logo. Basically, it's all because of Tom DeLonge, like I keep saying, and his signature Strat. So I really like the big 70s headstocks. Hardtail, again, my preference. I'm not a huge fan of trems, so I really do like this. The other thing with this is, even though it's quite late, being 1980, it's actually quite light. In fact, really light for the period, in my opinion. I've had some complete boat anchors in the past, but it comes in this nice, clean, natural finish. A 3-bolt neck, as we'd expect to see, all the black hardware, but it all checks out, all the correct electrics and pots, and comes in this polystyrene, which would have been about right for the time. So in here we have a really nice Guild, lovely clean condition. Now, this is from 2014, it's a D55. The reason it is so clean is because it is ex-shop stock of the vendor. So the vendor had a music shop, retired many years ago, but he kept a couple of the guitars for himself. So now he's just a private individual. So this is his Guild that he had as shop stock at the time. D55, Indian rows of back and sides, mahogany neck, ebony board with the abalone and pearl block position markers. You've even got the clear film still on the guard. But it comes in its original shipping box as well. So it's essentially, even though it's now 11 years old, it is brand new, which is weird to say, but there we go. 2014 Guild D55. So in here, same again. This was old stock, another Guild guitar. This is a 2012 Guild F-47M, and the M, of course, if we have a look, stands for maple. So it's yeah, all the maple there, apart from the top, obviously, that's spruce. Rosewood board, just with pearl block position markers this time, but again in lovely clean condition, original case, all the tags, and the shipping box. So in here, we've got a slightly similar story. This isn't from the same seller, but it is in fantastic condition. Now, this is a Martin HD28 from 2002, but the owner basically bought it because he needed a decent acoustic for gigging, but he basically used it once and then it got put away again and never used again. So hence why it appears in the as new condition that it does. So like I said, from 2002, so over 20 years old now, this guitar, but in fantastic condition, and it could almost go on a shop shelf and be sold as new. New old stock. Indian rosewood back and sides, as it should be. Spruce top, mahogany neck, ebony board, and comes with its original case, and it's even got all of its tags, which often go missing over time. There we go, registration card, and the tags in the case as well. 2002 Martin HD28. Right, so this guitar in here is possibly the reason a lot of you have tuned into the video, because you may have seen the thumbnail that would have dragged you in. So that thumbnail, not clickbait at all, it's true. This guitar was owned by Jimmy Page. It's got a really interesting story. Some of you may actually be going to this this video after the press release has gone out as well. So be a lot of news headlines on this guitar, because it's a rare opportunity to own a previously owned by Jimmy Page guitar. I think only 3 that I can find have ever really come onto the open market before. But what we have here is a vintage, rare vintage guitar in its own right anyway. We'll talk about the guitar first. As you can see, it's in incredible clean condition. It's a 1957 Gretsch Chet Atkins 6120. Of course, just with a single cutaway. There we go, I'll turn it over. And as you can see, the finish is still really bold, strong and orange. Hasn't faded like a lot of them do. Bit of oxidization around the rings here. We're not going to clean this up, we're just going to leave it as we should. Comes with the Bigsby, comes with the case as well, which is in equally fantastic condition. Now, the story behind this guitar is it was offered by Jimmy Page in 1974 as a competition prize in the New Musical Express, obviously now NME, and we'll have a look at said newspaper. I'm going to carefully put that back in the case there. So if we come over here, we can see 12th of October 1974, win Jimmy Page's own guitar. There he is in his cricket whites, holding the guitar like a cricket bat. And if we turn over, you can also £300 worth of orange gear, or 10 Fender acoustics. And here we have the competition. So there is the guitar in the paper, the first prize, and essentially what you had to do is you had to match the iconic guitarists in the pictures here. So of course we've got people like Bo Diddley there, Chuck Berry, Eric Clapton, so lots of different artists, and there we go. You had to match the guitarist. It's not Eric Clapton, of course, it's Keith Richards with the Exile burst there. So yeah, match these guitarists to the guitars. Of course, Jimi Hendrix with the lefty. So this was the competition. Obviously, it would have been entered by lots of people. In the same paper, there was a double-page spread about Jimmy Page and his guitars. Now, he does mention this Gretsch in the article, and when he's interviewed, he's asked where he got the Gretsch. Now, one of his inspirations was Eddie Cochran, of course, played a 6120, and he asked a US music store to look out for a guitar just like Eddie Cochran's. Now, he was originally after one with a G brand. He ended up with one without a G brand, because of course the G brand transitioned out from 56 into 57. So ended up with one without a G brand, but you paid £200 for the guitar, and he is very much inspired by Eddie Cochran, as we say. Now, he does also say in the article at the time, he's asked how many guitars does he actually own, and he claims at the time that he basically had a couple of Les Pauls. He did have an acoustic that he had recently sold, so it would indicate that this was actually one of only a few guitars he had around this time. Anyway, he had this guitar for a few years, and then he offered it up in collaboration with the NME. Now, what we have here is another NME, 18th of January 1975. And if we turn over to page 9 or 8, is it? There we go. We can see here is the competition winner, a Mr. Charles Reed of Turnpike Lane, North London, holding the guitar with Jimmy Page. And we do also have a picture of Charles Reed stood with all of the orange amps as well. There we go. It's another picture of him holding the guitar with the orange amplification that he owned. So Charles actually goes on to say in the article that where is it? Page must be mental giving away such a terrific guitar as this. It's the kind of classic instrument every guitar player dreams of owning and can never really afford. Now, apparently, this windfall, the article goes on to say, was just in the nick of time because Reed was just about to shell out a load of money for new gear. And yeah, basically, he just got this guitar just when he needed to go and buy something else. But it also goes on to say that he was a guitarist for 10 years standing, and he is currently auditioning with a number of London-based bands. And then he did state that, contrary to the rumour, he's not joining the Rolling Stones. There we go. So really, really interesting, the article there. So where does the story go from there? So we've seen the articles. Now, in 1990, 16th of September 1990, Charles Reed put the guitar up for sale. And as you can see, received the sum of £2,000 for the sale of a 1957 Gretsch 6120 Chet Atkins with the matching serial number 23243. Now, this guitar was bought by Mr. Phil O'Donoghue, who was a guitarist in a band called Wild Angels. There he is with his band. And essentially, Phil bought the guitar, and then he tentatively inquired with other people within the industry about how he might sell it on himself. And we do have some of that correspondence, and in one of the letters of correspondence, the specialist says, well, do you have a letter stating these facts from Mr. Charles Reed, who won the guitar? Which didn't at the time. So a year or so later, he actually wrote to Charles Reed to ask him for a letter, hence why it is dated the 27th of April 1992. So, and just on here we can see we've got the envelope as well that the letter arrived in with the date stamp to Mr. O'Donoghue from the postal code address. So we've got that in place as well. Like I said, we do have some letters regarding the information between the early specialists that he was talking to, but essentially it was a guitar that he just kept on to, never really wanted to let it go. And then, yeah, earlier this year, we had a phone call from the family of Mr. O'Donoghue, the two brothers that had inherited his instruments, and they'd found all this provenance with the guitar, and they looked to putting it up to market. Hence, it's here today, approaching us because of our specialist guitar auctions. So, 1957, Gretsch 6120, previously owned by Jimmy Page. Like I said, it's a really rare opportunity to own a guitar that was previously owned by Jimmy Page. I think he's quite openly doesn't sell gear. Now, of course, will have a huge guitar collection, I'm sure. But this one is one that came out into the market in the 70s and has been through two owners ever since. But what a fantastic piece this is. So 1957 Gretsch 6120, previously owned by the living legend, that is Jimmy Page. So there we go, ladies and gents. I think a pretty special way to end the video. I'm sure hopefully you all waited till the end to see this. The Jimmy Page 6120 from 1957. If you want a more in-depth look at the story and you can see some of the images that we've got, of course, do go onto our website. If you look in the news section, you will see it listed. It will be in the catalogue section with other artists' associated guitars soon as well. but you can see sort of all the history we've got and the complete write-up as it will appear in the catalogue. So do go and check that out. That is, of course, on guitar-auctions.co.uk or guitarauctions.com. And you can have a look at the preview catalogue there as well. As always, please remember to like this video. It really helps spread the word, spread the joy to other people. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for future notifications for videos. Of course, follow us on socials, Instagram at Guitar Auctions, Facebook /Guitar Auctions. Sign up to our mailing list just so you can keep up to date with all the news. But like I said, hope you enjoyed this video this week, and we'll be back next week with another consignment update with more of the same.